Hello, and welcome to the Manic Pixie Dream Podcast. I'm your host, Caroline Georges, and today's guest is Brandie Posey. She's a female comedian. You know, that's actually an oxymoron because I said comedian with an NNE. But she's very funny, has a lot of really great things to say about the comedy scene and what we can do to improve the situation for women there. Louis C.K. is back. And, really? So soon? Okay, so he didn't apologize before he did his set, and we discussed that. We kind of muse over, like, porn and guys and fucking guys who watch porn and stuff. Anyways, actually, I should probably give, like, a trigger warning. We also talk about how I was assaulted on set. So it's actually not that bad. It's fine. Honestly, like, I feel like if you are a assault survivor and stuff and you just need to, like, a little, like, diet story to kind of relate to and sort of understand, my situation was very minor, but it's really good to talk about. So please listen. But, you know, again, trigger warning. On this episode, we do talk about, like, jerking off and, you know, some intense issues. I don't know what your sensitivity level is, but I would say this is like mild if you're like comparing it to salsa. The audio is going to be bad in the beginning, I think probably at this point. Anyways, enjoy. I hope you enjoy our episode. Are they pretty?
Oh no, we're pretty blue.
Really?
Yeah.
Maryland's ironic.
Maryland's a very blue place.
Like, we don't need guns because we are a gun.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, we live as a gun. We don't need them.
We live in a gun shape.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I never watched The Wire because I was like, I grew up in The Wire. It's fine.
There are some shows I can't watch. Like, what's that one with the meth? When they cook meth?
Breaking Bad.
I can't watch that one.
Yeah, I kind of fell off of it because at a certain point I'm like, okay, I don't need to like watch a bad person be glorified. That's like every day of my life.
Yeah.
I don't need to be like, oh man, Walter White's such a problematic hero. Ugh. Okay, well have you met men?
Yeah, I just feel like there's some things where it's just like, if it's a movie or television universe that you feel too like attached to or too like you can relate to too much, you can't enjoy it, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
But, yeah, it's like Bret Easton Ellis movies.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I'm good.
It's like, I'm already there. I can't watch this and be entertained.
For sure. Yeah, it's like I never watched Entourage or like anything that's Hollywoodish because it just kind of more depresses me.
Well, you're also female. Else. You can't watch Entourage if you're female.
No, yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Exactly.
I was an extra on Entourage.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. When I was like 21 or something.
I made up an IMDb credit that I was an extra in Entourage.
Really?
Because I was in a spin class with Jeremy Piven and I thought it would be funny to like say that it was an Entourage episode. So I just like added it to IMDb. I just like picked like episode 69 or something. I was like, who cares? This whole industry's a joke. I'll just go add credits. It worked too. You can totally just do that. Who
really?
cares? Yeah. Yeah. Like, I have like an Entourage credit on my IMDb page and it's completely false and made up.
Yep. Made me laugh. Anyway, yeah. That's pretty fun. So that's one of my non-credits. Feels pretty good.
So you've been traveling. Do you have any funny traveling stories?
I mean, I've been touring for the last 4 to 5 years. So like at this point, it's kind of like I just want to get somewhere, go to the hotel, eat something healthy, and then do a show and like chill out afterwards. But like I do a lot of like DIY touring, which is also like, you know, I do
those
like
are fun.
Yeah. I do a lot of like punk tours and like little punk venues and like small theaters and stuff like that. And like that's kind of where like you don't necessarily have hotel money, so you kind of end up in like weird people's houses that you're sleeping in and stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah. So I've done a bunch of that. Like I did a tour like 2 years ago with my friend Lisa Curry, and we were in Fort Collins, Colorado, and the promoter was like, you can stay at my house. I have a house, like people, you know, not a big deal. You have the whole living room to yourself. And we're like, all right, cool. So we get to this place and he actually lives in a tent in his backyard because he Airbnbs out his entire house in like different little sections and stuff. So he had like 12 people sleeping in this house. And we got there and we're like, we're in our 30s. We aren't going to
And then the leasing office is this tent in the backyard.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. You just go and he's like, well, here's your dirty towel.
The landlord is this homeless person living in the backyard.
No, that's straight up. He was like, yeah, I pay the mortgage with this. And I was like, live in your house. At the bare minimum, live in your house. What are you doing? So we were like, all right, we don't have anything else to do. We're staying here for 2 nights. We're going to get something else tomorrow. But it's like midnight. We drove in like 8 hours from Nebraska. And we were just like, I don't care. I can sleep somewhere. It'll be fine. And the guy that was like living off of, so there's the living room and then the kitchen was a catty corner to it. And the guy that was living off of the kitchen for a couple of days straight up looked exactly like Charles Manson.
Ooh, good.
And he was just like shirtless. And then he had 3 different state outline tattoos. Like 3. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
Like you could have 2. I'll give you like the what place that you were born and like the place that you chose as your home.
I wouldn't even give you one.
I mean, I'm
Those
being
LA,
very
California
Yeah.
tattoos are really like just.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm being very generous at all, but
I
like
mean,
3 means there's bodies somewhere. Is how I feel
Maryland,
about
I
it.
could understand because it's shaped like a gun, and you could just if you have a gun and it's controversial, you could be like, no, that's my home state of Maryland. And
Exactly.
yeah.
That's just like what we're shaped.
So
like.
you can.
I'm
It's a
sorry.
good excuse to get a gun tattoo.
Yeah, exactly.
Need want one.
Exactly.
Saves Maryland.
Totally. Like, yeah, no, just like rep my hometown. But he just like it was like 2 a.m. when we finally got to the place, and he was like, "Can you?" He was like, "I'm gonna make dinner. You guys hungry?" And I was like, "No, it's 2 a.m. We drove 8 hours. I had a show. I just talked for an hour. I'm going the fuck to bed." And then he made a gallon of hamburger helper for himself.
And it's 2 a.m.
It's 2 a.m.
Dinner time.
Just like so much hamburger helper that he then poured like into a giant Tupperware container, and then he just like poured ranch on top of it, and then he like came over and like sit on the edge of the couch while he's like talking to us, eating out of his like trough of hamburger helper. And I was like, get away from me. So now I just pay for hotels. I don't care how much it is. I'm like, no, I want a clean place with a door that locks. That's all I need. It's very easy. It's all I'm ever looking for. Like my days of like staying in places like that hopefully are mostly over.
Oh jeez.
Every once in a while it'll be okay, but like, oof, boy. Yeah. So I've stayed in like places like that. Like, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, thankfully, like when I open for bigger people, it's pretty great because it's they put you up in hotels and stuff. Like with Kyle, I was just like at a bunch of Hampton Inns and everything. So
Ooh, Hampton Inn.
yeah, I got to like get free breakfast. Got to make my waffle in the morning. Got to go to the pool for a while. So it's just like that's how I really want touring to go. Just very no drama. Just chill out, meet some fans afterwards, and then like go the fuck to bed.
Yeah, you know you've made it if they're putting you up in a Hampton Inn.
I feel pretty good about it.
Yeah.
Hilton honors, baby.
Yes.
yes.
Okay.
This tour was great. It was really fun. I mean, like, there's lots of pieces of shit in comedy, and Kyle's definitely not one of them. So it's been
good.
it's been really great.
No, the opposite. And he's
no,
the
no,
worst.
no. Oh God, no. He's
Touring
a
with him was a nightmare. Tell the world.
no. Yeah, no. This is where I'm breaking the news.
Just got back. I'm ready to tell everybody.
I'm so thankful for being taken on the road. No, he's a sweetheart. No, it's just like really nice to be treated because it's also like I wish that more people would follow his example and like take somebody different than them on the road.
Yeah.
You know, so many dudes take other dudes on the road, and like, you know, Kyle's like starting to bring more female features with him and stuff just to be like, okay, cool. Like it's a more interesting show if the talent on stage is diverse, you know?
Yeah.
If it's just 4 people that all look the same, it's like, all right, well, your perspectives are going to be pretty similar.
For sure.
And you're
but
like,
at the same time, you can't have the Spice Girls opening for Dr. Dre. You know?
Yeah.
And so it's like,
It's still
you
like
have to have
genres.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like we're like him and I are actually a pretty good fit because like I think our like morals kind of come from the same place, but like we have experienced the world very differently. So like we can kind of talk about similar things from different perspectives, but kind of like in the same moral genre, which is the snooziest genre of all genres.
Snooziest?
Yeah, well, just like
You have a snoozy moral genre.
well,
Okay.
in terms of just like to talk about that is just like fucking boring. That's what I mean. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I mean like we're good. And then we just had like, you know, I know a lot of local comics in those places because I've like stayed on their couches. They were all our openers too. So
Oh, that's cool. So
Yeah.
like comics live all over. They're not just in LA.
oh
They're
God,
all
no,
over.
yeah, they're everywhere. I think like the rise unemployment in 2008, 2009 plus Twitter created comics all over the entire country. And people have like built little scenes all over the place because like with podcasts and stuff, they've been able to hear, oh, like this is what an open mic should be like. This is what all of this stuff should be like. And they're just building these cool little places. Like one of my favorite places to perform is this weird little town in the middle of Pennsylvania called Williamsport. And it's like all of these like kind of DIY punk kids that are in their 30s, so their knees hurt. So they all like started doing comedy instead of having bands. And like they just like throw mics all the time. And like they're just like they bring that kind of like positive community energy to comedy, which has kind of become like a very cool thing as like a kind of like a level of it. Like those are the kind of shows they try to do. And those people, like you can find them anywhere because they're like, well, why would I can build a scene here and enrich the culture in my own city versus going somewhere else. Yeah. So yeah, that's like usually who I end up meeting on the road and stuff. You know, it's like I love that. Like I'll play clubs if I have to, but like I don't really care about them. You know, they're like a necessary evil to kind of deal with. But like I also like don't get booked at a lot of them because I think I look like the daughter that doesn't come home for Thanksgiving to a lot of club owners who are just like, oh God, she just looks like she has a lot of opinions.
You think that club owners like don't like really?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, if you look at the breakdowns of like how many female headliners or features or opening acts that most clubs in this country have, like the female numbers versus male or non-binary numbers are crazy. Yeah, it's like pretty much always dudes. Like a good club will have 6 female headliners a year,
right?
Out of a 50-week year, but that's a good club. So yeah, I mean, it's not a system that really wants me as a part of it. So whatever, I'm like definitely fine with like building my own shit outside of it.
That's
and
good.
It's like when I worked with Kyle, we played like, because Kyle gets club work too, but he prefers doing like this kind of stuff where it is like he's playing massive music venues and stuff. Like we played the 930 Club in DC, which is like a 750 person seated theater, you know. So it's like, you know, I remember like seeing my first like punk ska shows there back in like 1998 when I like used to live there, and it's like, no, this is like way more my vibe. These are my people that come out to this kind of thing. I prefer it because it doesn't have this weird 2-drink minimum plus a ticket, which is what most comedy clubs have. So it is kind of more, it's like most comedy clubs make their money off of like booze and stuff like that. So they just don't, like the comedy comes secondary.
Right.
Like they aren't really booking like, oh, people like this comedian and they'll come out for this. They just want to be like blanket. We have comedy here tonight. And it's like, if you like me, you might not like other comics and vice versa. Like there's different kinds of comics out there.
That's
like,
true.
You know, so it's like, you know, I don't like every comic that I see and I can't expect every audience member to like me. So,
yeah,
you know, so it's, if whenever I play music venues and stuff like that or like bar shows, it kind of always feels more like, okay, cool. This is already people that I'm going to have something in common with, because like I cut my teeth just coming to places like this.
I mean, I went to the Laugh Factory for like the first time since I've ever lived in LA, and it was maybe like 2 weeks ago, and I looked around and I was like there just supporting a friend, and everyone there was like a woman. There was like guys there with girls, but like it was like women together, groups of girls, and it was like every person that performed was like a guy and was like a straight guy. And I mean, which is like fine. You know what I mean? Like they were all funny and stuff, but it's just like, it's all women, and women are here to develop their taste in comedy. And if the only thing that we're given to see is just a bunch of straight guys, then
we will.
Finish my thought.
Oh yeah. Well, I have a perfect example of this. So this will relate. Have you been to Magic Mike Live in Las Vegas?
Unfortunately, no. Okay. But I've sworn off Las Vegas.
Here's the thing. You're right, except for that show. It's an amazing show because it was like Channing Tatum put it together. Every man that is cast in that show has to go through Feminism 101 before they are even taught the dance moves, down to the busboys and stuff like that. It is like a woke ass fucking show. So, but let me explain this to you. Okay. So the show starts off with like a fake MC that comes out and is just a piece of shit. And it's just like, where's all the wet pussies at? Blah, blah. And he just leans into it. And like you feel and the audience is all women and they're all laughing, but you feel this like, okay, well, it's just going to be a fun night. Ha ha ha. We'll laugh because we're going to make the best of a not great scenario, but we're still going to find laughter in it. We're still going to have a good time. But there's a moment where it changes and you realize that that's a fake out. And then that person just gets like taken away. And then this MC is like this badass lady. Her name's Lindsay Haley. I want to shout her out.
Lindsay Haley. Remember that name.
She's the actual MC. And then the whole show is basically just like, who wants this shitty fireman waving his dick in your face? I just want somebody that's like a musician that can hold down a job. And it's just like laying out like, hey, women, when's the last time a guy in a nice suit that fits like slow danced with you? When's the last time that like somebody did something nice for you? Like there's guys that like come out and they like play the piano and like women are just laying on the piano and stuff. Like it's all about what women want versus what like men think women want, and then they get off on the idea that they're giving women what they think they want. So
see,
it's
I
like,
feel like laying on top of a piano while a guy plays it is something a guy would think I would want.
it's all
And
like it's old ladies for that one specifically. They always grab
okay.
like an old lady out of the audience. So it's there's like different levels of different
so that
stuff.
fantasy. of
Yeah,
it.
and they
Yeah.
do like
Okay.
you know,
Older
but
ladies.
they're also all taught like they go through consent training to basically like read all of your cues to see how far you want to go or how far you want them to go or not. Like it's great, but the switch when the male MC. When you realize that the male MC is like not the actual thing that you signed up for, the laughter in the room changes. And you feel all these women just be like, oh shit, this is actually for me. I don't have to like make the best of it because this is for me now. And like you feel the energy in the room, it just shifts completely. And it's like that, I feel that at comedy clubs too, where it's like you see a lot of people, women like laughing along because they're like, well, this is what, you know, it's not perfect, but like I still want to have a good time tonight because what am I going to do? Have a bad time? And then like my whole day was bad because my boss disrespected me and I had to do all this extra shit because my boyfriend wasn't taught how to do fucking chores or anything.
Yeah.
And I don't want to sit here and be mad, so I'll make the best of it. But then, like, when they're given a comic that actually, like, and this doesn't have to be just women, but like there are men that just like can tap into like and want to acknowledge their experience versus like speaking from just like these are jokes that you'll like them, ladies, you know. And when you feel an audience make that shift to be like, oh shit, these are jokes that are like for me, the energy changes completely. Yeah. It's a completely different animal. And like I think about that moment the first time I saw that show a lot, where it's just like, oh, cool. This is the difference between the two. Like women are willing to like have a good time because we have to. Otherwise, like life is hard and we're going to just be mad at everything that is upsetting you all the time. You know, it's like, yeah, no, I can laugh at myself. That's cool. But like when something is actually for them, I mean, like opening for Kyle was great because I had a lot of like women that came up to me afterwards and they were like, I really like Kyle. He's been awesome.
Yeah.
But like hearing your point of view on some of the same shit was just like so cool to hear, like so cool to feel like I was being represented in this space too, you know. And it goes a long way for people to be able to see themselves there. Like I didn't start doing stand-up until I was 24 because I just like didn't really think there was a place for me in it for a long time until I moved out to LA and I started seeing like comics at like small shows at like UCB and stuff. And I'd see like, you know, growing up, like the only stand-ups females that were on TV was like Janine Garofalo and like Margaret Cho, and like they're great.
Yeah.
But there were so many just like bros in backwards baseball caps that I was like, I don't want them to be my coworkers. Like it seems like they don't like women very much. And I just like didn't see myself wanting to be in that world and fight with that. And then when I, you know, the irony is that now I do, but I know how many people there are that don't subscribe to that way of thinking too in stand-up. Like it's become more and more diverse over time. And now it's like, I know people that have started stand-up because they've seen me do stand-up and they've like written to me and been like, oh, like you showed me that there is a way to talk about what I want to talk about on stage and be funny. And like, there's a path to that. You know, it might not get you like the biggest stuff in the world, eventually maybe, and knock on all of the wood about that. But like, yeah, I think it's representation really matters in stand up a lot.
You know, and I agree with you, but at the same time, I mean, because I agree with you for like, it's an influence that I need, you know, but, and I know that there have been female comedians who've, you know, I always hated my name growing up. I always thought it was just like I hated my name. I wanted to be named Jessica or something like that. Okay. But Caroline Rhea, you know, she was so funny, and I really loved her. And she was on like Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
Yeah, she's awesome.
And I think I watched one of her for like I think before comedy was like sort of on my radar as like a thing. You know, I watched her special and stuff, and she just kind of made me feel better about just like my name. You know, I mean, look at this cool, sexy, fun, blonde, you know, woman named Caroline. You know, and I kind of just started warming to my name. And so, I mean, I guess in that way, I mean, like, you know, representation and seeing women out there being funny and, I mean, just being funny. Yeah. You know, it doesn't matter how. I feel like there's all these rules about how women need to be funny. And need, like, you know, certain amounts of feminism and certain amounts of, you know, sass and stuff like that. And there's just, like, I guess, I don't know, like, I just feel like sometimes I'll go to open mics and it's like every girl I see go up there is Sarah Silverman. Yeah. And absolutely. Yeah. And it's like, because they're developing their, but
you're still figuring out your voice and everything. Yeah, definitely.
Did you read Garden Girl or watch?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't.
Did you see the movie?
No.
Okay, well the movie didn't really. Anyways, but
Yeah.
there's the whole cool girl, you know, message. I don't know, and it's
Yeah.
and it's basically just saying that like, are women really, you know, putting themselves out there because they're independent women, or are they just, I'm attracted to musicians, so I'm going to become a musician chick, and I'm attracted to lawyers, so I'm going to become a lawyer chick. I'm attracted to doctors, so I'm going to become a nurse, kind of thing.
Ooh,
and
Jesus.
yeah, exactly. And so it's like, so I wonder, it's like, are there women that really like funny guys? And then because it was like in the back to the Laugh Factory, it was all girls.
Yeah,
all of them. It was like mostly all girls.
Yeah.
And then these guys go on stage and they're really funny. And like, I mean, they're not like ugly guys.
No.
Yeah, they're like, you know, they're good looking guys and stuff. And so it's like, is this women being cool girls? And is this women just kind of putting themselves out there for men that they're into, and they're into funny guys? So they'll go to a comedy club and they want to see funny straight guys going on stage and being funny. And is that what the market is? And that's what it's serving. It's just women who are attracted to comedians.
I mean, I think women want to laugh, and I don't think that women, I don't think that they want to go see comedy, and I don't think that different kinds of comedy have been supported to the degree of that kind of more mainstream thing yet. So I think that they are just like, well, this is what I think stand-up is, and it does make me laugh, so I'll go to it. And they don't know that there's necessarily that there's more out there either. So I think it is like, I mean, there is definitely also an attraction. It's like you're seeing people that are confident, that are like good at their craft, that are passionate. I mean, like seeing a man or a woman that is like passionate and, you know, great at their job, and can also just like distill down point, like comedy at its best, I think makes people feel less alone in the world, because you're like pointing out something else that somebody else has seen, and being able to crystallize it and be like, oh, this is bullshit, or this is a ridiculous thing that we all do. And then it makes you feel like, oh man, yeah, everybody does it. It's not just me in my apartment screaming at like this specific thing. You know, it just makes you feel like there's more people that feel that way. And I think like good comedy kind of does that for me, at least. And like, I think women come out to see that, and also just like the power of feeling women laughing around them. You know, it's like, how many times have you been in a brunch or a dinner or whatever with a bunch of women, and like if you laugh too loudly, you see like dirty looks from other tables. Does that ever happen to you? That's happened to me like a lot in my life, where it's like if you're just like having kind of like a rowdy table that's just
you're
having
feeling
a time,
more than what's appropriate at the time, and everyone gets mad at you,
and you're just not being silent. You're not being quiet enough. Yeah, like I've done like
I guess so.
Yeah, that's happened to me like a lot. Like I remember specifically being in like Portland with like I was doing a podcast. I went to a bar, and like it was like we were out in the patio, and there was like 4 of us just like riffing and like, having a good time and just laughing. And I just remember this table of guys that was like 5 tables away with us, and they did not look like they were having fun at all. But they just kept being like these loud women like you could just tell that they were just like, you're not laughing, you're cackling. You know, it's like they gender your laugh. And it's like to be in a space that you can just laugh and let it go, there aren't that many of them in the world. So I think it is also just women are like, well, I just go and laugh here and like be loud and rowdy and have a good time. You know, I think it's also why like people get mad, because like there are like, you know, the stereotypical hecklers that like women like get louder and they heckle more typically. And I think it is an extension of that, because it's like, oh, I can actually just let loose here. Oh shit, I got out a little bit out of control tonight. Sorry. You know, but this is a space that I can feel like I can just let it go. And there's so few places that you can.
I know, but it's like, I feel like there's some places where you can, because when you were talking about Magic Mike, I had an experience. I've never been to like a strip club, like a male strip club, or a woman's strip club. Or is I don't know which one.
But I mean, that it's like it's a male
strip club for women.
Yeah, I mean it's a male strip show. Like it's more like it's more of a show than anything else, because they all do like have talents, and they're like legit dancers, and like their underwear's on the entire time too. Like dicks aren't out. It's just like,
well, that's too bad.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's like I'm just pitching Magic Mike Live very hard. It's a great show.
Imagine you just see Jarhead with Jake Gyllenhaal, that scene with the Santa Claus hat. This is what I think of when I think of this.
Yeah. Well, and that's like Magic Mike Live specifically is like tearing that kind of stuff apart, where they're just like, that's hacky and stupid and dumb, but like this is like it's a different way to do it. Yeah. It's just goofy. It's a fun time that you just feel like you can. It feels like a very safe space to be in. Like, and it is just like you also every time they like bring a woman up from the audience up on stage to like they'll do a dance, it's just everyone just cheering for them. So it's just this positive space of just like we aren't being shamed for our sexuality here, and we're just like we're being respected, and like to see respect be sexy is just like a very like you walk out and you're just like, this is how it should be treated by everybody all the time. Like all of the waiters, like literally down to the waiters and stuff. Like they all like they're taught to like make eye contact with you, ask whatever you want. Like it's just you're just treated like a queen the entire show. It feels awesome.
Amazing.
Yeah. So it is just like, you know, we don't have spaces like that. I mean, the amount of time in the human existence that a woman is able to even be on stage with a microphone and say her thoughts without being stoned to death is just like a tiny amount of time. You know, I mean, and to be able to make a living at it to some degree is even shorter, you know, maybe 40 years, not even, you know, I mean, it's like Joan, like Rivers and Phyllis Diller and like, you know, Moms Mabley were some of the first ones. And like, they're, you know, that's less than a century ago, you know, I mean, it's just like, that's something I think about all the time whenever I get like stressed out about like spots and stuff like that. If I'm just like, oh gosh, this is hard. Everything's hard. I'm like, it's gotten easier and it hasn't been around that long. Like this is your duty to like not phone it in, don't half-ass shit because you're part of a very recent tradition of ladies.
There is a contraption that was made in the 1800s and it's like a chastity belt for your face. So it's like it's literally a bridle for your face, and they used to put it on women when they talk too much. And I have the picture of it saved on my phone and just kind of, and I'll just look at it and it's so fascinating. Yeah. Because it's like, this was a done thing. This was something that actually, could you imagine just being like a fly on the wall in that situation where it's like, okay, Maybelle, you've been talking shit too long. Time for the, you know,
pop out like, the bridle. Don't worry.
This thing where like, I guess like then they would make the woman like walk around town in it and stuff and humiliate her with this thing. And just for talking.
Yeah,
and,
for having opinions.
I know.
How could she?
I know, exactly. And so it's just, you have to like, I mean, there's so much gratitude. It's just like, look at how bad it once was.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, like things could be better. Yeah.
Well, it's like you can't let it, it's like honoring the memory of that to and let it empower you to move forward. To be like, okay, that happened to get me here. What am I doing to further this down the line? Like you're part of a tradition of people.
Exactly. I mean, feminism was like born in bridge clubs. It was women coming together, playing cards and talking about, oh yeah, my husband raped me. Oh, my husband, you know, hit me and stuff. And it's like, hey, like this is really hurting us that our husbands are treating us like shit and stuff. We need to figure something out. And so like that's how feminism started. You know, it's just women coming together and being together. Yeah. And I guess like it doesn't have to be like a woman's march. It can be going to that show or you know, one of my experiences with like female unity, and I think that I've had some notable ones, but one of them was I went to a sex seminar with a friend when I was like younger, and it was supposed to be like, you know, like how to use a condom and just like, but it kind of goes over all territory and stuff. And so it was like a group of women in this like auditorium, and there were these 3 nurses and the women who were doing the seminar and stuff. And each one of them was like this boisterous, fun, sassy, older lady, you know, like lots of makeup on and jewelry and stuff. And you could tell that they were just like these like totally like Asian whores, you know.
Hell yeah, having a good time.
And they were just kind of like, and so, and everyone would kind of interject if they said something sort of ridiculous or like that sounded funny and like sex jokes and stuff. And it was so fun. Just like learning about like sex positions and like how to put on a condom and that sort of thing. And like all these women were just having, it was just fun. Like, I don't know. I mean, I don't remember anything from that. Like, I don't know how to put on a condom, but I know that women community with women is a really good thing.
Oh, it means so much. I feel like we're separated so much all of the time, you know. I mean, like how I frequently like catch myself just being like, oh, I'm like one of like maybe 2 or 3 women in a room full of men all the time, like or like I'll be out on a train and I'll look around and I'll be like, where are all the women at right now? And it's just like, it's when you have those moments when you are all together, it is just cool just to feel like that kind of energy around you, to be like, oh man, I feel like I'm in a coven right now.
Yeah.
And it's powerful. You feel this power.
Oh, for sure.
It's awesome. And it's just like that kind of situation is awesome because it's just also like a completely safe space that you're just all like, we can ask questions. There's no judgment. Like no one's going to like call me a dumb slut or something because I have questions. Like, it just
Yeah.
it's an open exchange of ideas and like thoughts and like, hey, I don't actually know how to do this, and like an exchange of information. And I mean, like, and even if you don't remember writing the details, it's like you remember that feeling, and like that feeling is just like a huge gift in and of itself to be like, oh, this is a way that I feel like this. I know how to find this in the world now. Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, so I think a lot of women going at comedy shows, it's like when you have female audiences, it's like I'm good friends with the gals from like My Favorite Murder, and I've been to like a bunch of their live shows, and my podcast Lady to Lady did a festival with them in Chicago 2 years ago or 3 years ago maybe now, when it was their first live show, and they sold out this theater, and like I was at it, and I was just gonna like record them going out on stage for the first time just to be like, "This is your first live show, so proud of you guys." And then I hit record when like the music started, and the applause for them coming on stage did not stop for like a minute and a half. Like straight up, the video is 95 seconds long, and it's just this theater of people screaming like they're rock stars, because it's just like, and it was all 98% women, like, and they all were brunette with bangs. It was great. It was just this room full of women who were just like, thank you for, their whole podcast is about like, staying sexy and not getting murdered, and like, hey, like, take care of yourself. You don't have to be fucking polite all the time, because like that's women get murdered for being polite a lot of the time because you don't want to rock the boat, because you're like, oh, well, okay, all right, I guess I'll just keep moving my line because I want to make you comfortable and I'm sacrificing my own comfort. And like so much of their show is just like, fuck that, who cares? No, it's about you surviving, and like for people to have even like said that thing, I mean, it's just this powerful feeling of like their fans around them just being like, yes, thank you for putting it into words, the thing that I've always wanted. And then I'm in a room full of a community full of people that also believe this too. Yeah. It just like, it's a very powerful space to be in when you have these like women are like, no, it doesn't need to be that way. It can be this way instead. Yeah. It's fine. I can also be loud and have opinions, and like, I don't need to shrink myself to give you more space. Yeah. I mean, there's obviously like, different levels of that too. It's like, you don't want to be like a white woman like stomping on like people of color and stuff like that, but you do need to like you've got to balance all of your shit. But the more you can become empowered, the more that opens your eyes up to like what you were doing for others too. It's like once everyone has had like a little bit of empowerment, you can be like, okay, cool, awesome, I can just kind of understand my position of power because I've been able to see it now a little bit and look around and see how I can forward that along to somebody else. Yeah. So yeah, those like female spaces are amazing.
For sure. Mm-hmm. But how do you create more of them, do you think? Like, is there anything that you've like, have you ever done like an all women's comedy show or something like that? Where only women?
Oh yeah.
Because I know that Eliza
Skinner.
She
Schlesinger or
Schlesinger.
I don't know which one. There's a bunch of Elizas.
Eliza, the elder millennial. That was her.
Oh, Schlesinger, yeah.
Yeah, she did an all at the Largo. There was that whole controversy where she did like she wanted to do this podcast recording with all women. Yeah. And this guy complained and tried to sue them and stuff, which I thought was just why be a pain in the ass? You know? And it's just like and so it's just like, how do you create these spaces for women, but at the same time, like if men create these spaces for themselves,
but they have forever.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they've been allowed to forever. Like that's what most like.
And they should still be allowed to.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. That's fine. It's just, it's more just like also recognizing the purpose of it. It's like, why do all men need to get together? Like I understand being like, I just need a break.
Because the men don't want to get together in all men groups because they want to be around women, So they have like fantasy football leagues or something like that. And that would be all men.
Exactly.
But it's like, I'm sure if a woman were to be like, I'm actually really into fantasy football, can I join your league? They'd be like, men only or something. I mean,
oh, totally. I mean, like you take a look at any like female sports broadcaster and how much bullshit they get. And like, it's like they know their shit better than half the guys that are commentators,
I saw this one that was really disturbing where like this woman was interviewing this like boxer guy, and the guy started like humping her while she was standing there with a microphone, and like, and then this guy just like turned towards her and started like miming humping her leg and stuff. And she was just standing there just giving the story and just kind of like, like, like while this guy was doing that. And I was like impressed. Like that's like, composure under pressure.
Oh yeah, I would have ripped his fucking dick off.
But Yeah, but
gouged out his eyes and ripped his dick off. That's like 100% would have happened. Don't try to hump me if you ever see me live.
This guy was a boxer, though. I think she was probably pretty smart and not doing anything.
Yeah, I mean, probably. It's infuriating. It's like we just don't have like systems in place to handle that kind of shit.
Yeah, well, I mean, except for public shaming, like it feels like we've kind of the media has kind of created this like where you put like the head in the bowl and they have to like sit in the town square while they're infused vegetables in them, and so like I guess recently Louis C.K. just got out of his. Yeah. So he's done the public humiliation. And he's been paraded through town, and everyone's.
He got a 9-month vacation, and now he gets to just slide back into his sets on stage. So
good for him. Oh, okay.
Must have been nice just to have enough money because of how you've abused your power over the years to be able to just take 9 months off and, think on some thoughts. Okay. The thing that's like annoying too is like he came back and he didn't even do stand up about what happened. Like it was just kind of just like regular.
That wouldn't have been very smart. Yeah. I mean, what is he going to say?
Well, I think acknowledging it, because his whole act is just like him, plumbing the depths of his own soul and his own depravity. That's his whole brand.
Well, that was what was so shocking, because I felt like he had said things that were so enlightened as far as women's issues are concerned. Yep. And it's like, that enlightenment is coming from his own self-awareness of what his desires are.
He knows his shit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And which I think is, I think comedians have to be very self-reflective people and have to be very aware of their flaws.
He's known for decades what he did wrong. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they were all like rumors though, I guess, according to him for the longest time until. Yep. But so okay, let's paint the picture. What did he do? Like, what was his?
He did a drop in, which is also like an unannounced set, basically where he wasn't on the lineup of people announced ahead of time. So
but I'm sure he probably called the bookers. And
Like they knew. Just, come in. Yeah, they knew, and like the comics on the lineup knew ahead of time, but they didn't. The audience did not know that he was dropping in, which is also shitty because it's like
some women might not want to be there. Yeah,
absolutely. And if you're like,
would you have walked out?
Yeah, absolutely.
Did women walk out?
I haven't seen any reporting on it. I did see an article that said that there were a lot of very quiet women in the audience that just like were like, what am I going to do right now? Because it's a small club. It's like a 200-seater.
What club is it?
It's Comedy Cellar in New York. Oh. It's a small, intimate room that you can kind of see the whole audience from the stage. And it is just like you make yourself a target if you stand up and you leave. Yeah. And like not everybody wants to do that. Like I get that. Like I'm okay being the center of attention and that kind of shit, but like I get that because I'm in stand up, like I'm used to it. But it's like if you're just an audience member coming out to stuff, I get not wanting to like stir it up because then because then it all becomes about you and then you get torn down by everything. So he was an unannounced drop in. He got on stage. When he was brought to the stage, he got a standing ovation from all the dudes in the room, which is also just like deeply depressing to be like, oh, Louis back before he even says a word. We're just glad he's back. He served his time. No, he didn't. He didn't serve his time.
So what did he do? Like what? Well, let's just for the.
Okay, for those that don't know, there's a couple. There's a lot of articles about it. Louis C.K. Basically like cornered several women over the course of decades and would like masturbate in front of them, basically. And he'd be like, "Hey, I want to masturbate in front of you. Is that cool?" And like he thought it was like that getting consent, but it was like at comedy festivals. It was like in work environments and stuff like that. And it was just like from where he was in a position of power, where it's like, if you say no, what happens? Like your career is going to be fucked. So it's not really consent because you're being pressured into a situation you don't want to be a part of. And he would just like, masturbate and come on his belly in front of all of them.
I mean, has there ever been a woman that he asked who said no and can like say, hey, like he asked me and I said no?
There might have been.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I'm
because he cornered them.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah, I mean,
that's been the account of all of his victims.
Basically, yeah. There was 2 at a comedy festival that he invited to their hotel room, which is also not uncommon because it's like you, as a comic, like you just at festivals, you kind of just end up in other people's rooms hanging out and stuff for a while. Yeah. And you're all coworkers, and so it's not like I'm not a fucking groupie. I'm your coworker. I want to be seen that way.
Right.
So it's like deeply depressing to be like, oh, cool. All of the work that I put in, like you still just see me as like a fuck thing.
Yeah.
Great. Awesome. My opinions mean nothing to you. Like none of like my jokes mean nothing. You're not even paying attention to that shit.
Yeah.
So it just like takes all of your power away.
Well, it's like seeing women as like, now that I've succeeded, I can accumulate women. Like I can accumulate money and possessions and that sort of thing. So it is like a very objectifying thing that he did because he's I mean, think of all the open mics he went to when he was 20 years old and all of these pretty, comedy girls that he never got to fuck back then.
Yep.
And it's like now he's Louis C.K. and it's like, oh, all these young pretty comedy girls are now wanting to come back to my hotel room. And
but just to hang out, not to like get jacked off in front of,
But how do you, he had a situation where women were in his hotel room and he had power, and that goes.
Yeah.
I do know that he does a lot of comedy about porn and watching porn and stuff. And I always get really nervous, dating guys or even being friends with guys who are like, I watch porn. And, And because I just think that they get really desensitized. And it's like, do you know that episode of Friends where they get a porn channel and they don't want to turn off the TV because they're scared they're going to lose their great porn channel.
Yeah.
But then like Joey and Chandler are like, I went to the bank today and the bank teller didn't want to take me back to the vault and have sex with me. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, I know. I went to the gym and the girl at the gym didn't want to have sex with me. And it's like so true because I feel like guys like they watch porn and they think that women want it that badly and that easily and stuff, and they just kind of like put themselves and they it's easy for them to be in that fantasy because it's what they see all the fucking time, every day, and it's how they're ejaculating all the time. So it's like I can see where it's like they stop seeing reality and then they're in these like live simulations with women that they don't realize they're victimizing or they do, and that's what makes them feel good. Yeah, and
absolutely. Well, and it's also like we literally have smartphones where it's like porn is in your pocket at all times. Yeah, and it's on a small screen, and like so much porn is also just like close-up shots of stuff, so it's not even a full picture of a person. It's just like a series of different holes or parts of your body. So you're even like cut up as a human being. It's awful. There's a time and a place for it. And like being ethical about what you're watching and making sure that it is like consenty stuff too. I mean, like I've been in a relationship for 7 years, but like I have a lot of girlfriends are like, oh yeah, people are like trying to choke me more often than have ever had before.
Yeah,
like,
I noticed trends happen sometimes. Like when you like don't sleep with a guy for like a year and then you have sex with a guy and it's like, why was he so obsessed with me sitting on his face? Where did that come from? That was never a thing before. And it's like, so I get that.
Yeah, but it's like, Louis, I'm sure watches a lot of porn and like it's being drunk with power too. And also I think like comics also have like a self-sabotage streak, and I think like the more powerful you become too, you're like, well, where's my line? Where can I draw that? What else can I get away with? Not in everybody, obviously.
Oh,
but I think,
I know I'm that kind of person. I love seeing what I can get away with.
Yeah, and definitely.
It can be really fun, and
and I think it's just like he's also hadn't really felt the consequence in a long time because he has powerful people in his corner that like those girls at that festival, they were talking about it and they were told like, do not talk about this by like his people. And like, he has a powerful team of people behind him.
Who do these people think they are though? Like, hey, I know that, our boss, raped you, but just don't say anything about it. Okay, cool. Yeah. All right. Bye.
No. I mean, well, they're pieces of shit. I mean, like,
I mean, like Harvey Weinstein's assistants, like, God, where, like,
exactly.
Can we have them killed? Like, one of his assistants was literally like after this girl was sexually assaulted, like this, like this like Italian model. After she was sexually assaulted by Harvey Weinstein, she left the hotel room probably like all like
fucked up and just like, in her head.
And he was like, I felt really bad taking you. I really like you. Yeah. This was really hard for me. And it was just like he was apologizing to her. Yeah. Saying that he felt bad. Like, you're somebody I really felt bad for. So it's like there were other women like, he was like his assistant. So it's like, okay, so I guess you felt bad for this woman, but like, how did you feel? Like I guess maybe I don't know who's another victim. Like,
I know.
Like Angelina Jolie must have been a real bitch. Thank God Harvey Weinstein got her.
Yeah, I know. Like, exactly.
Like, did some women have it coming? I guess, like
in their minds. It's horrifying. But, it's infuriating, and it is just like it's the whole system is in place. Like there is no HR department in most of this stuff, like there is no comedy union, there is no comedy HR, there is no way, even like,
and that's something I've learned that has been surprising because UCB has an HR comedy,
put that in recently.
But it's a separate company. It's like there's an HR company that just works as like a all-purpose HR place. And And so like, you know, then other companies can hire them to work with them and stuff. So it's like they're completely separate from the business though. Totally. They're completely separate from any person in power, teachers, instructors, you know, and so
they don't know.
If a student is being sexually harassed by one of the instructors or by another student, they don't even have to go to anybody there. They can just go straight to this HR company and complain there.
Yeah.
And I think that solves so many problems. And I'm surprised that not many more you know, feminists are saying like, hey, this is actually a solution that could actually help a lot of women or even, you know, men that might get victimized within the system.
Yeah. I mean, like it would be great. I mean, the problem is that like, then it becomes, is that something that, like most clubs are separate. Like there's certain chains like the Improv or like Yuck Yucks and stuff like that who, you know, aren't going to employ that in their own way. But it's like so many clubs are just like, okay, maybe it's like they own 1 or 2 or 3 clubs at a time. And it's like, are they going to, who foots the bill for that stuff? Right. And there's just like no way to really unionize comics because it's like, at what point do you become a comic? And then like, are you asking like poor open micers to pay into something? And what does that mean? You know, so it makes it really difficult to figure out like where are those lines, and like the onus becomes like, okay, well, hopefully like the gatekeepers and stuff like that want to help and take care of you, but like they absolutely don't. Like they just want to retain their power as much as possible. I mean, it's like, and like, I mean, the UCB, it's been working out well. The thing that's difficult sometimes with HR within a system too is that like most HR, I like that it's a third party. Most HR that is within the system
in-house
works for the management.
Right.
You know, it's not actually, it's there to make sure that the company is okay. Sure. It's not for workers, basically. This is when I start using all my socialist language. This is when it starts kicking in. But it is like, in comedy, it's difficult because also companies like stand up is full of fucking contrarians who like want to do this because they don't want to be constrained by rules. And like, I get that like to a big degree. Like I mean, I definitely can do that myself, but I've also like learned like, oh no, like we retain power the more of us that are together, you know, but it's hard because it's like, you need the guys to start standing up and being like, no, we need this too. Like, and they have been slow, but like there are some guys that are getting better and better about it too. I mean, with the Louis stuff, like, Ian Carmel, like Matt Bronger, I've seen them tweeting about like, hey, this is bullshit. This is a workplace issue. This is not like, you know, I mean, I'm not saying that you need to be banned from comedy completely, but like you need to show some growth. Like to me, if Louis had gone and like been like, I'm taking some time off, I'm going to go behind the scenes for a while. I'm going to start producing like female comedy tours. I'm going to make reparations to these women whose careers I fucked with. You know, it's like
that
financially.
Would be interesting because it's like, what communication has been with these women?
Yeah.
And a lot of people, I think, in defense of the perpetrators of these things or the people that have been accused have said like this should have been handled privately. And it's like these women have been coming for Louis C.K. privately for years.
Yeah, exactly.
Trying to like, you know, fix this situation. Like
he wouldn't do it.
Notaro. Yeah, she was, you know, she was friends with him and was trying to get him to come forward and figure something out and was trying to help him.
His hand had to be forced.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's, what was my...
I'm
just like outrage.
No, it's like, well, the they need to be forced, but then there also needs to be like these are the things that we're okay with. And there's no mediation of what that is. You know, it's all very lawless of just like, okay, well, we don't like you right now. And it's like, okay, if there is a path back, then there needs to be like, who sets what that is? How do we acknowledge? Because he's not going to come up with it on his own.
No.
But there needs to be like, and this is in so many cases where it's like, you know, how are you donating money to RAIN? Are you doing, you know, there's any number of things that you could do to make amends for this situation. Sure. And just because like you didn't go to jail, which is great for, you know, for you. But like you're not entitled to be a public figure. You know, no one is entitled to being a rich and famous comedian.
Agreed.
You're worth, I mean, he's worth something like $25 million. It's like you have generational wealth. You don't need to ever be on stage again. You might want to be on stage again, but guess what? Every woman that you fucking jerked off in front of, they would like to have been on stage more too, but you fucked them off. How many number of people quit? I mean, like I've definitely had moments where like, you know, at open mics where people have said shit to me and I'm just like, is this fucking worth it for me to stick this out? Cause like I'm just disrespected at every turn. I mean, and that has gotten way better, because more women, more like people of color, more non-binary people are starting to do stand-up because they're like, and it's because things are becoming more diverse, the power is dispersed among different people. So it's like, I mean, the problem is that like the gatekeepers tend to still be like these like dudes that like want to just like help the bros out. So there is still like a ceiling there in a lot of ways. But like new media is definitely breaking it up more. But it's also like a lot of gatekeepers are very resentful of that. Like there was an article, actually, let me find it real quick. There was an article that so Just for Laughs is like a big comedy festival that happens every year in Montreal. It's like one of the biggest ones. Like Netflix just shot like 30 specials there.
Oh wow.
And it's like a massive big thing. Like it's if you get Montreal, it's like a huge deal. And they just did like a panel of gatekeepers at the comedy table. It's in a Terabang article called "Gatekeepers of Comedy Tackle the Biggest Challenges Facing Comedy Today" at Just for Laughs and answer the Louis C.K. question. So they talk about Louis, but they also talk about like Netflix. They talk about censorship in comedy. And there's one part, and it's 2 men and 2 women that are talking in this article, and they're different club owners from around the country. And I want to find just this. Where is that paragraph that like just deeply fucking depressed me yesterday?
While you're looking for that, I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you think what Louis C.K. did in terms of like what other people did, like in comparison, like how bad was it? Like, I mean, I'm sorry. Like, I know like abuse is abuse is abuse.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've experienced abuse from multiple partners, and it's like sometimes it's just worse with some people. They're just like some people hit you a little harder than the others. Than others.
I mean,
it's
it's not like a physical rape. There were no like bruises or anything like that. But I think it's more just like the rape is like assault is rarely about the physical act and more about like the power structure.
Right.
You know, and so I think it always keeps coming back to like it's still like the aftermath would be the same regardless of if he had raped somebody versus just jerked off in front of them. I think they still would have been silenced and like and forced out.
Right.
Yeah. I think that's more where it's like kind of comes down the same way.
I had an experience on set where I was, I don't know if it was sexually harassed or sexually assaulted or what the line is between the things, but I was working on set, and I had to reset the set when they were doing a stunt, and they were doing like this knife fight or whatever, and so they knocked things over, and so I would go in and I'd reset it and stuff, and this was like this like little skeleton crew for like this indie film, and it was a really chaotic set, like it was really stressful, it was very like low budget and that sort of thing, like nobody was being paid enough, everyone was tired, and it was like this like 3-week shoot, we had to do like work like 10-hour days, and you know, just get to like, you know, we were always falling behind, it was horrible, but a guy on the set, we were filming, and there were the camera and stuff was set up in this really narrow hallway because we were filming in someone's house, and somebody on the crew, who I'm not going to say his name, I'm not going to, you know, but so I had to, so when it was time to stop filming, I would walk and I would go past him, and he turned towards me as I was walking past, and I felt on my like hip, like you know, maybe like less than a foot away from my fucking vagina, like a erect dick. Jesus. And I looked, and it was this guy. He was like, you know, pushing his dick into me as I was walking past him, and like, so everyone was like distracted. There was this big stunt, and no one noticed, and so I thought it might have, you know, benefit of a doubt kind of, you know, thinking, and I walked past, and I was kind of like, okay, well, all right. And then when they filmed it again, and then I had to walk past and him again, and he did it again. Jesus and Christ. And then I, you know, so it got to the point where it's like I'd reset it, and then I would just stand there, and I would just wait until they were ready to start filming, until everybody was like, and you know, it's like, Caroline, get out of the frame. You know, like, okay. And then so like, that's, you know, how I handled it. And I don't know, like, it's just sort of like, I didn't say anything. You know, just like something that happened that day. It was a really chaotic shoot, you know, that's how bad the shoot was. It's like, that was just something that happened on this shoot. Everything on the shoot was terrible. And that was just one other terrible thing.
Did you not think that there was, like, you had anybody on set that you could have gone to about that?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone was, I mean, there was like probably an actress I could have talked to and stuff, but like it was kind of it was
that kind of shoot where it's just like, I mean, you know, somebody above the line going and talking to an actress like, hey, like this guy is sexually assaulting me. Do you mind taking a break from your lines? To, you know, protect, I don't know, like white knight my situation there. Yeah. So it was, everyone was kind of on their own. I was on my own, you know, and I how do you reach out and how do you like, I mean, because you have to respond immediately or not at all, it seems like. And, and so I ran into him and I was grocery shopping and I ran into him and he stopped and he like looked in my basket and he was like, oh, healthy. And he walked off. And that was the last time I've seen him. And it was like, we just had this normal exchange at the grocery store, you know, like, oh, hi, you know, guy who rubbed his dick on me on set, you know, and it's, but it's at the same time, like, it wasn't that bad. Like, I mean, it was just like a second. And I was wearing leggings and stuff. So, I mean, it's like, I really, like.
It doesn't matter, though. It doesn't matter what you were wearing. Yeah. You know, it doesn't matter.
Well, no, I mean, it matters because if I was wearing jeans, I wouldn't have smelled his dick as much as I was wearing thin fabric.
Yeah. No, but like, it's still just like, put your fucking dick away.
I know, exactly.
It's a place of work.
What you're wearing.
It's a place of work.
Because the amount of fabric protects you, I guess.
Like, just don't rub your dick on a fucking stranger. Like, and I mean, like, that is bad, though, because it's like, because it's also escalating. You know, it's like, if he does that, then he can get away with it and get away with it. And maybe that turns into like, oh, okay, well, she seemed to like it. Maybe now let me just go find out where she lives and like try to make it a thing. Like, it's escalating behavior. And like,
you can find out where I live.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Oh. Like, if it's like, oh, well, she didn't seem to have a problem with it. Oh, you know,
he wouldn't come after me.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying, like, some people like. There's no way to know that sometimes with some people. You know what I mean? It's like it escalates. Like, not every rapist starts off as a rapist. You know, it's like you
yeah. There's like patterns of abuse.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, you know, not every like
But it's like when you hear of the Brock Turners and stuff, like guys who just like rape someone. Yeah. And it's you know, like, and you know, it's like it's like, he did it one time as an isolated incident. He's like a nice boy and that sort of thing. But then his dad would say the shadiest fucking things about the situation. So you know that it's like this kid was getting messages about this kind of behavior from his dad. And it's like it's pretty clear his dad failed him.
Yeah, and society around him, too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so, like, what are the situations that lead up to this? And it's like, is me not doing something about a guy rubbing his heart on me on set, you know, because I mean, it was a high stress. I don't want to sound like I don't want to have like battered wife syndromes, but it was a very stressful shoot, you know? Yeah. And I don't know. And I think that that's like him being stressed out, you know, and stuff.
He got a boner because he was stressed out?
I think he was stressed out and it's like he kind of let the side down and just like, you know, it's a shitty shoot. There's this girl here. I'm just going to run my dick on her to make myself feel better or something.
That's monstrous.
I know it is.
That's a monstrous thing. Yeah, that's a monstrous thing. It's a bad choice. I've been in a lot of stressful situations and never had a guy just rub their dick on me, you know, and they shouldn't. And they absolutely shouldn't. And this is not, I hope this is not coming across as me like,
no. Honestly, like I just don't want to. Just be like. It was literally just something that happened that day. For sure. And I've always thought about it, and I've always just kind of just like that was kind of weird. Yeah. You know?
Oh, totally. And it's not like the thing is, it's not that he needs to like go to jail, but it's like,
but at the same time, I don't want to ruin someone's career for one thing that happened that day. You know what I mean? Even though, it's. I mean.
Yeah, I mean, I guess to me, like, I wouldn't care. Like, a career is not like a right. You know, you have a right to feel safe in the world.
Yes.
You know, that's a more important right to me than somebody's 401k. You know, because he's a man, and guess what? He'll always be able to get another job somewhere else. But it's like, if that's like a situation where, you know, that's something that he just is able to do everywhere, then okay, he's just rubbing his dick on one other city. And like for you know, I don't give a fuck about this, but it's like for his own safety too. It's like someday you're gonna rub that dick on the wrong person, man. And they're gonna rip it off. You know, or you're gonna get caught and like your whole life will be fucked up then. Versus like, hey man, you get fired from a shoot. Maybe that is the catalyst that makes that person be like, oh man, a job got fucked up. I should go to, you know, Sex Addicts Anonymous or something, or like whatever the system is. Right. It's like we just have there is no in between like being shamed and fixing the issue. Right. And like that I think is like the next stage of Me Too, but it's not even about like needing, like it's about making sure like we're able to
Right.
talk about what's happening, but then also like we need to figure out like, okay, I'm not saying to get them
Right.
back to that job and that position of power, because fuck that, but it is also just like, okay, so what are the steps that like work as atonement for this?
Well, I mean, actually confronting sex addiction as like a serious issue,
Yeah.
I think. Because I mean, honestly, like, is Louis C.K. a rapist or is he just a sex addict? And
Yeah.
this was his rock bottom,
Mhm.
was jerking off to young
Yeah.
women.
Mhm.
And or
But if he came back and he was like, hey, I've been in sex addicts, I've been in meetings
yeah,
for
and
the last 9
the
months.
Step 4 making amends.
Yeah.
thing.
And if like to me it's like if he was putting in the work.
Right, but if you
Yeah.
treat sex addicts like
Mhm.
they're alcoholics or like any kind of drug addict, like when I was an alcoholic, I got a DUI,
Yeah.
and I
Mhm.
this girl I got into an accident, this girl
Yeah.
broke her arm,
Mhm.
and so it's like dealing with it
Yeah.
like that, except with sex addiction.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to be looking
Right.
at it. And it is, so much of those programs are about looking outside of yourself and like realizing what you do and do not have power over, and then
Right.
being like, okay, awesome. How can I make amends? How can I feel more fulfilled in different
Sure.
ways? Like you don't just get to get away with everything
Yeah.
forever. And it's like there should be a wake up call to be like, oh man, I guess I can't just keep living this
Yeah.
selfish life forever and just treating everybody as just like whatever in my wake.
Mhm.
And I think it's like that's the thing that's so frustrating about Louis, where it's like if he had come back and been like, I've legitimately put in work, I understand what I did wrong,
Yeah.
and it was fucked up, and I'm honestly talking about it on stage, because that wouldn't be out of line with the rest of his act. He got famous for saying that he hates his fucking kids. You know what I mean? He like is willing to go to an opinion and that is like hard for people to stomach and deal with. Like he's willing to do that. Like his whole career has been built on like, yeah, I'm an asshole, and these are the ways I'm an asshole, and this is how I'm trying to not be an asshole. Like
Yeah.
that's his whole fucking brand. So it's
Sure.
like for him to not at the very least come back and be like, hey, I have some material I'm working out. I'm working a new hour. All the money from that hour is going towards, a charity of some kind that will help empower women, or like I'm becoming like a producer of like a third party producer of things for
financial
women.
producer.
Yeah.
Why does he even have to say it? Just do it anonymously and let that be penance for things.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's like he's not doing any of that, and it's just him being
But
like,
if he's doing it anonymously, then we wouldn't know. And I wonder if he's dealing with the situation by doing something anonymously, because I think that would be.
I mean, it would be cool. I feel.
it's just like a personal thing. I hate when celebrities brag about their charities. I think that's just kind of.
For sure, but I guess to me it's also like in this instance it
Yeah.
is like you got to let us know that you're putting in work, because
Right.
otherwise it makes women feel safe. It feels unsafe, because I can't imagine there wasn't a female comic on that lineup, but I can imagine being the only female comic on a lineup at the Cellar, and then Louis C.K. walks into the fucking green room, and then you're like, oh shit, nobody here is gonna have my back, are they? Like, okay, cool, I'm a woman left alone in the green room. What's he gonna say about this? Like, are you going to acknowledge, hey, I fucked up and I'm trying to work on it?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, great. Because now you, and as the comic, you're thinking about that. You're not thinking about your set. I mean, okay, cool. So now, like, is your set going to be as good as it would have been because this guy just walked in and like distracted you because you're worried about your safety more than anything else? And then like, do you follow him, and are you expected to talk about that?
Right.
The onus is put on you completely, because then you're the only woman on the show. There wasn't even a woman on the show.
Well, I mean, I guess that makes me think of the 5 employees at Walking Dead or
Yeah.
Talking Dead
Talking
that
Dead,
have
yeah.
quit in protest to Chris Hardwick's,
Yeah.
leaving. And
Yeah.
so
Mm-hmm.
what I think of that is that they knew something, they heard something, they saw
Yeah.
something, and they said something.
Yeah.
And because they did an investigation on this girl's claims.
Yep.
And I mean, I guess, I don't know. The only complaint I have is that she just didn't go ahead and say his name, and she did this whole thing where she wrote an anonymous blog, and she was just like, yes, and I was starfished by a man who wore all red velvet and worked on Christmas Day and had 10 reindeers, and he had a belly like a bowl full of jelly, but I'm not going to say his name.
Yeah.
I'm not going to identify this man.
But I think a lot of that's
But
legal.
he has a big white beard.
Yeah.
And
I think a lot of that's legal, though. I think that post felt like it was run past a lawyer to me.
really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Because I mean,
So it was an intentional call out then.
Yeah.
Just without, okay.
yeah, I that was 100% my feeling when I was reading it. I was like, oh, you know that you could get sued for this.
Yeah.
If you say his name, and that's
Sure.
a lot. That's a lot of stuff. It's like that's why so much, like that's why rumor exists for so long. Like people are always like shitty about like women gossiping and stuff, and I'm just like, women gossiping is like tends to be how we exchange information because we can't say it openly because then we will get torn down.
Well, yeah, I mean,
you
like
know?
women talking together is always going to be gossiping.
Yeah.
I think of like women never having a conversation. That's
Yeah.
sort of what they call it. But
Exactly.
I guess
Mm-hmm.
big picture,
Mhm.
I mean, there was a lot of claims in the Chris Hardwick thing, but
Yeah.
I think the most upsetting one, I guess,
Mhm.
the one that upset me was
Yeah.
the starfishing thing,
Mhm.
where she said that he wanted to have
Yeah.
sex whenever he wanted to have sex, and
Yeah.
if she had health issues that
Mhm.
made her not want to have sex sometimes.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
she would have to have sex with him, and
Mhm.
it was called, and he joked about it, and he
Yeah.
called it starfishing.
It was his term. Yeah.
Where,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
I mean, it's like I get upset that
Yeah.
like this girl was
Mhm.
like this, you know, she said that she, like, even if she was crying,
Yeah.
he would,
He would go for it.
yeah. And
Yeah,
so,
didn't care. She was
so-
just a series of holes to him. in
right.
that
And so,
moment.
I mean, I couldn't imagine being, I mean,
It puts you, I think it's like reading that account, it
Right.
puts you
right.
into maybe not that specific scenario,
Yeah.
but like a scenario that's adjacent to it that
Yeah.
like every woman has had something like that
Sure.
happen, you know, where it's like
Rape, like that's
Yeah.
like that's kind of what it
Yeah,
is.
no,
it's like
it's rape.
you're
Yeah.
in an emotional chokehold, you
Yeah.
know, and somebody is
Mhm.
you know on top of you having sex with your body, and you're bound
Yeah.
to this person because you love them
hmm
and you want them to be happy, and
Yeah.
this is what you're going to do to make them happy, even no matter how violating it feels
Yeah.
to you.
exactly.
And
hmm
but if 5 employees quit in protest, I mean,
Mhm.
okay, like maybe it's just they hated him and
Yeah.
this was their chance to get rid of him.
Yeah.
And so
Mhm.
it's like, whatever she said, we believe it because of our own personal experiences with
Mhm.
him
Yeah.
that are professional.
Yeah.
But because they were negative,
Yeah.
you know, everything that this girl is saying sounds like it could be true to me.
Mhm.
So maybe it's that. And maybe they quit for those reasons.
Yeah.
But I kind of feel like if 5 people quit their jobs, you know, in Los Angeles, where rent
Yeah.
is so expensive and finding a new job is so hard,
Yeah.
that they're willing to, it's because they know something and they really don't want to work with somebody who fucking starfishes someone.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And which I think is totally fair. And so
Yeah.
I wish one of those like 5 people would come forward and say why they quit.
Yeah.
Because it's like they had to have seen something or have heard something to have
Yeah.
believed her.
hmm
And I wonder what those things are.
Or just like, I think also, it makes it difficult to be a part of a culture where, okay, so this person did these things and then is just allowed back. What if anything happens to me here now? Like nobody
Right.
has your back. Like that
Yeah.
just says that, okay, cool. So this is how AMC is going to treat it if something happens. For my own safety,
Right.
I gotta go because I'm not safe here.
Yeah.
And it just makes you feel like nobody has your back. I mean, it's the same as like being in like a green room with comics like that, where it is just like you feel like the whole thing that you've poured time and you've sacrificed time with family members and loved ones too, that you like, I mean, entertainment's a hard industry. You put so much into it that you give up other time and space and quality things with like the people outside of your job to then find out that the industry doesn't give a fuck about you because they would rather kowtow to this famous person. I mean, like, I'm convinced like AMC, like they fired him very quickly, which to me says that like they were looking for a reason to. You know, I've heard that he's pretty difficult to work with.
I mean, I think
There's a lot of people that are, but I think it's also like money wise too.
yeah, but I've worked on creative endeavors, and a lot of people said I'm difficult to work with. But it's like when
Yeah.
you're in a creative environment and you're trying to get something done and you want it to be really good and
Yeah.
stuff. I mean, I believe it or not, I had like my friend Erin. She was supposed to do this podcast with me, and then
Oh, gotcha.
and then she. And
It's just hard.
yeah, and she and I decided, like she and I had different ideas for what this podcast was going to be, and
Totally.
she didn't want to, you know, be personal with her experiences and stuff. So she's like, you know, I'll just come on as a guest whenever you want me to come on as
Yeah.
a guest,
And
we
that's
can just
totally
do this
fine.
and yeah, so
Yeah.
I mean, like, but so I totally get
Yeah.
like being difficult to work with. Like, you, it's just
Definitely.
it's a difficult thing to do to put on a production,
Yeah.
to put on a show, no matter how many
Mhm.
how many
Totally.
people, yeah, no matter how
Well-
above the line or below the line
Yeah.
your position is. It's
And it
really
is
hard
like
work.
when you are the figurehead too, like there are like your time is very precious and you
Yeah.
can't be bothered by a lot of stuff too. But I
Right.
do think there's also like a money element to it as well, where it's like he's very expensive and AMC probably was like, this is an opportunity for us to seem like the good guy and get rid of him. And then we just save money on our bottom line. And then I think some time passed. They did some own projections inside and we're like, oh, it's probably not worth it. Let's have him back. But we can negotiate from a place where like maybe we pay him less now, you know, like we don't know. I mean, it's like all the the James Gunn stuff to me that I've seen people talking about, like James Gunn got fired from Guardians of the Galaxy 3 because old tweets that from like a decade ago came out.
Yeah.
But to me, it's like if you look at all the movies, James Gunn is an executive producer on a lot of the new Marvel movies, including the new, like he has changed the tone of how all of those movies are done. Like you don't hire Taika Waititi for Thor 3 without James Gunn being like, oh, these need to be comedy movies now.
Yeah.
Like he's changed the tone. He has a lot of power in that universe. And to me, it's like, okay, they found an excuse to get rid of him because now they don't have to pay those points on all the future movies that he would be an EP on.
Sure.
So, and to me, it's like, it's all about, you got it. Like those people that like make money, they don't give a fuck about anybody except for money. So it's always like, how does the money break down? And to me, I would bet that AMC is a similar deal where it's like, okay, now we're in a position of power that we can negotiate with him, with Hardwick down to whatever we want it to be, because, you know, we want him back, but like, we don't have to take him back, and we can still look like the good guy and get goodwill from that. Yeah. You know? So, I mean, it's we work in a disgusting industry.
I know. Chris Hardwick, you are sentenced to being paid less.
Yeah. No, and that's...
After years of starfishing your ex-girlfriend, you are sentenced...
That's what you get, guy that
to
married
a lesser paycheck than you were paid before.
Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter because you're already a millionaire and you already married a Hearst, so it's not like you don't have money.
That's true. I mean, I'm sorry. Yeah. Like, I just think it's so funny because his girlfriend or his wife has like been so defensive of him and stuff, and it's like, her mother is like the poster
Patty
child.
Hearst. I mean, her fucking grandpa started the Spanish-American War. It's like, all right, girl. It's crazy.
It's just, I love it like that. All women that he's been married to.
I know.
And he's like known for emotional abuse.
Yep.
It's like the poster child of Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah, exactly. Like
his mother-in-law.
An interesting relationship. That's fun how that works for everybody.
I know, it's fun.
Yeah. Everybody
fun.
It's fun. If you it just goes to show if you stick it around in this industry long enough, you'll always come back. Patty Hearst is back. It's just ridiculous. But I do think it is like following the money is always like an interesting thing for me to be like, and I think that with Louis coming back now, this is them testing the water to be like, okay, we have shit. Is he still financially viable? Oh, that standing ovation before he even said a goddamn word on stage tells me that he's still going to be able to sell out theaters. So who really cares if he can still sell out theaters? Because then everyone's still getting paid. Then his manager, Dave Becky, is still getting paid. You know, I mean, it's just Aziz is starting to come back too, and it's the same thing. And Aziz and Louis have the same manager. It's Dave Becky. Like this is testing the waters for all of it. Yeah. You know, just to be like, okay, cool. Can we still make money off of you? Great, awesome. Like that. It like. His Dave Becky's roster of clients did not all leave him the moment that this came out that he was like defending Louis and basically like blacklisting people to keep this under wraps. And like that's a deep, deep bench of people that are repped by him. And it's like power. It's levels of power that like you can't even comprehend because he's an EP on a ton of stuff. And it's like, okay, well, you can blacklist you against people that you don't even know their names because you haven't even in that echelon of people yet. You know, it's frustrating.
Wait a second. He can blacklist you.
He can like have you blocked from working with people that you don't even know yet because he is in such like a power position. You know what I mean?
And this is all just to like hide, like to stop rumors from forming.
Yeah,
and spreading. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. I mean, it's like I don't know who is in his phone.
Yeah, I mean, because it's like it feels like the mafia almost because it's just like you don't want somebody to talk and you can't like, you know, bury them. So like, how do you get rid of them? You know, you just make sure that they're not around the right people that they can like, you know, because people talk, people do say shit. You know what I mean? Like I have no issue talking about things that have happened, even if I say names or don't. But it's at the same time like, oh, like this one big major comedian jerked off in front of me. Oh, who did it? Who was it? Who was it? Who was it? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
and then I don't want to be known for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then also, I mean, I think that comedians, you know, process trauma by making jokes out of it. And
absolutely.
So, and so, I mean, these women could actually do a set about being sexually assaulted by Louis C.K.
Yeah.
Or like,
definitely.
or even talk about it, you know, in a set or something like that.
If they're allowed on stages, you know, if they're allowed to go up at certain places, you know, it's like their careers are definitely impacted in different ways. It's like, I'm sure when that article came out, the Comedy Cellar was like, cool, these women are not allowed on our stage. You know, it's like, because we can't have Louis drop in and then have one of the women that he jerked off in front of in the green room. We can't have that. That's unfair to Louis. It'll be uncomfortable, and he's the one that sells our tickets here. You know, he put our show on he put our club on a TV show. You know, so it's like they can get up and they can do stuff. It's like I know Rebecca Corey, she still tours. Like she does a thing called Stand Up for Pit Bulls, basically where she like does comedy shows and she raises money for pit bulls all over the country, and like she, you know, support her work. She's great. Like these women come forward and you sacrifice a part of what could have been. You know, like financially, like, and you know, the way that you're seeing, like the way so many people saw their names for the first time was in that article. You know, it's the, you know, like, and that's frustrating to be like, cool, that's who you are forever now to a lot of people. It's the only time they'll ever hear your name. And how many people read that article and then went and like watched their stand up or bought their album? Very few, I'm sure. You know, there wasn't a call for that. There's no like, we're not talking about financial compensation on the back end of any of this stuff for it. Yeah. You know, I mean, it's like, and it's hard to prove all of that too, because people are like, talent, free speech, like you could just be tough and like fucking make it anyway. But it's just not, it's not realistic, and it's bullshit, and it's very gendered, because like guys keep saying stuff like that. And it's like, motherfucker, if I had an extra 50 pounds and I put you in a fucking corner and did this to you, I'd love to see how you reacted to it. If I was in a position of power, but guys just can't, a lot of men have a hard time being able to understand what not having power feels like. They think they do, they know, but they don't, you know, and like what it's like to be physically intimidated by somebody. And then all of the boys club that backs it up, because if they admit that, then they have to admit that they didn't get everything that they have on their own 100%. And it's really hard for a lot of guys in stand up to be like, oh no, the system did help me. Like it was still hard because I still had to put in the time and be funny, but like it's still, you know, it's you were still benefited from it. You still absolutely were. I mean, Jesus, how many open mics have I been to where like I'll do a set and then like, you know, the next 3 comics would just like jokingly threaten me from the stage or something because they think it's hilarious just to like make rape jokes about me. Like that's happened a million times.
What?
Oh yeah, it's open mics have gotten a lot better. I've been doing stand-up for about 10 years. When I first started, you'd have guys that were just like, I'll get a Brandie. God, I'd do anything to just like choke fuck her with her own studded belt or whatever. And it's like, oh man, whatever. I know I'm funnier than you. Fuck you. You're
I feel
not
like that
going
happens a
anywhere.
lot of open mics, though. I think a lot of open micers are like, I'm just gonna go and say the most shocking, like disgusting thing. Because honestly, like I've heard female comics say like shit about like killing babies. And
For sure.
And I mean, so it's kind of like, I mean,
well, it's different if there's a baby in the room that can
upsetting and offensive doesn't necessarily make funny. You know?
Yeah. But it's when you are being singled out in like a situation to be like, oh, okay, cool. So everyone just thinks it's funny that guy just threatened me, and it said it in a joking way, I guess. I mean, there's rarely were there punchlines because they're not very funny.
The thing is that doing rape jokes and stuff, it's like, why? I mean, like you're upsetting people. Everyone is here to laugh, you know? And so it's like, why do you, it's not funny to upset people. Yeah. You want to tell these jokes. And, you know, I want rape jokes. I think rape jokes are hilarious. And I think that they're really funny. And I think every joke that I've ever seen about rape has always made me feel better about my experiences. And
you're very lucky.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, well, I don't mind rape jokes as long as the butt of the joke is the rapist. Yes.
Exactly.
I think it's all about the intent of the joke.
Yes, exactly.
I think it's all about the intent of the joke. As long as you're not just like, she had it coming or whatever. Because like then I think it's like, I think there is a way to do it and a way not to do it. Like, I haven't watched it yet, but I know Cameron Esposito just put out a whole special called Rape Jokes. And it's like an hour of her doing jokes that are about how fucked up rape is. Right. And if you come at it from that angle, go for it. But I've also heard a lot of shit where it's just like, and then I raped her. Ha, ha, ha. And it's like, okay. Yeah. Those to me aren't funny. Because it's like, okay, so you just said a word that how many people in the audience just got taken back to a place because you triggered PTSD in them to be like, oh man, you just made me think of this horrible thing, you know? And like it's like ironically, there's a really great scene in the first episode or the first season of Louis that there's a bunch of comics sitting around a table talking about saying fag basically on stage. And there's a gay comic there in that they're playing poker. They're all talking about like, oh, this is how I use it. This is how I use it. And they get to him and like, well, what do you think? And he's like, well, I want you to know that every time you say that word on stage, it takes me back to a place where like I was beaten up for it, like I was used against me, my life was threatened, like this is, and you make me feel that way when you say it because that's where it takes me back to. And you can say it, but you need to understand that that is what you're doing to anybody in the audience who's been called that word before. So it's like with great power comes great responsibility,
Right.
but it is just like you wield the word, but like understand the legacy of the word, basically. You know what I mean? Where it's like, if you can make it work and it's worth it to you to put half your audience there, then in a bad way, you know, it's like if you're talking about, like, to me, it's like people aren't edgy unless they're, to me anymore, where unless you're being vulnerable on stage,
Right.
like that's the only level of edge. I don't care if you're like, you know, saying bad things on stage. I'm like, okay, I got over that the first time I got like, you know, my mouth washed out for saying shit. Okay, great, cool, awesome. That's fine. Who cares? It doesn't matter. Tell me something about you as a person in the world and how things have affected you.
Right.
Like that's to me where edginess comes from, is like when you're sharing something of yourself. It's like when you're sharing something of yourself, you know, it's like, if your whole life is hypothetical, then you're a coward to me.
Ooh.
Yeah. Like, cool, you live your life hypothetically because you won't let anything affect you and everything is like at a distance. You're an emotional coward and you have nothing of consequences that I care to hear about because you haven't thought about anything and how it affects you in the world.
How do people live hypothetically? Like, what's an example of that?
To me, well, it's just not like not working on empathy,
Right.
not like keeping people at arm's distance,
Right.
keeping people like not you know, not thinking about how things actually affect you in any way and letting them affect you, you know. I mean, like numbing yourself to everything around you and like just living your life as like there's you know, you'll see comics, you see like comics are just like white dudes that'll be like, oh, the N-word, and let's talk about that and what that means in the world. And I'm like, your take doesn't matter. Your take doesn't matter. I think you're cowardly for talking about that versus telling me like something honest about like, when's the first time that somebody hurt you? You know, like tell me about that and make that funny. Like, unless you can make your own experiences funny, like to me, it's like, then it's a joke that anybody could say. And if like, then like you aren't willing to be you're not willing to let your soul be judged by an audience. You know, when everything is hypothetical and because it doesn't affect you personally, then you're not on display to an audience. It's just these like thoughts from a third party that are on display from an audience. So like you can't feel the rejection personally.
Yeah.
You know, so to me it's like, no, if it didn't happen to you and it isn't like what you actually feel, I don't give a fuck about it. You know, I just don't.
But I mean, at the same time, the world isn't a safe place, you know,
No,
and freedom of speech is, you know, hugely important, especially in comedy, because I mean, I guess like, do you watch Sex and the City?
I've seen, yeah.
Well, one thing about Sex and the City is that Darren Star, who's like the big producer,
Creator,
he was like, he was in an interview and they asked him about feminism, and he was like, well, I mean, you know, feminism is great, but I never really considered myself much of one, and you know, I never said that Sex and the City was a feminist show, so what's the problem? And so I was really surprised because like Sex and the City is such a female empowerment is such a theme in that show, and it's like. And the creator rejects feminism, or not rejects feminism, but like, you know, just says like, you know, and feminism wasn't really what I was. Point. The fact that she ended up with Mr. Big, you know, it's not a feminist show. Yeah. But at the same time, like there are such profound moments of female empowerment. And so it's like, this show has been given freedom of speech to say and do whatever it wants, whether that be feminist or not. And it's had some amazing moments of, you know, female friendship and like female, you know, standing up for themselves in work and with their relationships and stuff and these great scenes. But then every so often, like, oh God, well, Carrie's back with Big again. You know, it's like, you know, so it's maybe like, but feminism grows and thrives in an environment where it wasn't established that it was going to be that, you know? So I feel like that's kind of the same with comedy. You have to just like, no rules. There are no...
Be conscious of like where, and this is not just for you, this is for everybody, just like support financially the people that do the shit that you want to see in the world, because that's the only way to make it better. Because like bookers are fucking cowards until it affects their pocketbook, and then they're like, oh shit, this is how I sell out. Okay. So it is like, look up anybody every time you see somebody that is affected, make sure you look them up and support their work. You know, that's the best way that you can by shifting the tides financially. Because we live in a capitalist society, and that's just what's going to happen.
Go out and support.
Please follow Brandie at Brandazzle. I'm assuming that is Instagram and Twitter. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next week. Goodbye.